for which Uganda does operate. Among these are the IMF, and I know for a fact that a number of members of parliament have been a part and parcel of the spring meetings in Washington, D.C., organized by the IMF and the World Bank, among others. Then we have standards, safety and cooperation. These are extremely important for us because as lawmakers, you will find that some laws that are being brought to you may not be consistent with the standards. For instance, we have the International Civil Aviation Organization. That one takes care of standards in the aviation space, and we must comply as a country. We have the International Maritime Organization, we have the International Telecom Union, we have the International Telecommunications Satellite Organization, we have the Universal Postal Union, among others. All these institutions require that we, as a member state that has signed on these treaties, indeed do, by and large, abide by them. Honorable members, allow me to talk about some of the countries that Uganda may or may not recognize for one reason or the other. And in a number of parliaments, 9th where I was, we had some individuals coming in from Taiwan and requesting that we create a Friends of Taiwan parliamentary group. Now, I want to say that Uganda subscribes to the One China policy and does not believe that Taiwan is a country on its own. So I kindly request that should they invite you to create a parliamentary group called the Friends of Taiwan, you reconsider that, because otherwise it will injure Uganda's relationship with China. And then, of course, we know that Kosovo is a breakaway territory from Serbia. We don't recognize it as a country. Somaliland is another fairly controversial one. You'll get people coming from Somaliland and inviting you, giving you invitations. We believe in the Federal Republic of Somalia and not the breakaway Somaliland. Now, the other one that we recognize is Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which is also recognized by the African Union. So that one we can engage, and indeed, they have their embassy here in Kampala. Now, Uganda, as a member of NAM, within NAM, there's a parliamentary group that was set up by Azerbaijan when they were chair. So we expect that members of parliament shall be invited to participate in that. But within NAM, under our chairmanship, we have had a challenge navigating a number of issues. Some of those are the conflict in the Middle East, such as the conflict in Gaza, Palestine, Iran, US, Israel, Russia, Ukraine. And we have been consistent that Uganda supports a peaceful resolution of all conflicts. And we have been indeed non-aligned without appearing to support one side or the other, against the other. One extremely important aspect for us to know as members of parliament is the sanctions regime. The sanctions regime, sanctions of course are coercive and non-military, imposed to maintain and restore international peace and security. Now, the instrument used in sanctions are arms embargo, like South Sudan has an arms embargo, travel bans. Travel bans, I'm sure we are familiar with, financial restrictions, assets freezes. Just the other day, we received a note advising us of a number of individuals whose finances have been frozen on account of supporting the war in Sudan, Khartoum. Now, these sanctions are administered by the UN Sanctions Committee. Now, UN Sanctions Committee have effect. Once the UN Sanctions Committee sanctions you, those ones have effect. However, they are what we call unilateral sanctions, where the US sanctions an individual or a country. That may not have so much effect, but the UN sanctions regime, those ones have serious effect. UN Security Council especially. And then, of course, Uganda does not recognize unilateral sanctions by individual states because they are not binding. As I said earlier, those are not binding, so we don't recognize them. But if it's the UN Security Council, we have no shortcut. We must abide. Then there is monitoring and reporting. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and again, we have, I think, a Human Rights Committee in Parliament. We have a duty to report on what they call the Universal Periodical Review in Geneva on the state of human rights in Uganda. We have institutions such as the Committee on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. We have the Committee Against Torture, and we have the Committee on Rights of Children. Now, in terms of diplomacy, this includes compliance, periodic reporting, and constructive engagement with these oversight bodies. Now, the other aspect that is extremely important is selecting and supporting Uganda's candidatures. As you'll appreciate, within the scope of an organization such as the UN, there are so many opportunities that Ugandans should be taking advantage of. So at the ministry, we do support the placement of Ugandans in these organizations. Now, in terms of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations that I referred to, it governs how diplomatic functions are conducted, and it says, this is extremely critical, Article 41, paragraph 2, it says, all official business with the receiving state entrusted to the mission shall be conducted with or through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the receiving state or such other ministry as may be agreed. What does this mean? I see my ministers here looking at me. It means clearly that you may not go directly to one embassy to engage with them without necessarily going through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And it's for good measure, extremely for good measure, because they may trap you into something that is irreversible. And normally, we want to avoid that. So the reason we have this article is to reinforce proper diplomatic channels, to ensure that there is a central place that knows what each and every embassy is doing with the government in Uganda. Otherwise, it will be chaotic if they just go to each and every ministry and do whatever they want to do. Then, prevents bypassing official institutions and promotes order and the law that you just passed before you close the 11th Parliament, the Sovereignty Act. Otherwise, you might undermine your sovereignty by some ministries operating on their own. Now, in terms of the role of different arms, the executive, as we know, determines and formulates policy. The legislature makes laws that govern the treaties, ratification and domestication, and then certainly the judiciary, in case of any challenge, does the interpretation. There's a bit of detail there, but I'll not go through that. Now, every time we have appeared before my chair of the session and my chair of foreign affairs in the last parliament, we were asked about ratification of treaties. Now, the Ratification of Treaties Act, I think, is the shortest law. It's probably one page law, the shortest law. And it requires that ratification, when you ratify, that is to give Uganda's consent, and that we shall be bound by that international agreement. And it requires that it is domesticated. Now, in a ratification, the line ministry, if there was something, let's say, within the African Union, it relates to agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture must prepare a cabinet paper, take it to cabinet for ratification, for cabinet to associate with that treaty. Once that is done, they pass it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible. Our only role is to lay it on table in Parliament, after the sector ministry has done whatever they need to do. After laying it on table in Parliament, then we deposit it with, say, the African Union or the UN. That's our role. That's what we do as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the MDA prepares a cabinet memorandum, the instrument of ratification is signed. If it requires a law is passed to integrate the obligations. As I said earlier, we had the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961. Government of Uganda passed a law, the Diplomatic Privileges Act in 1965, and that was domesticated, and then we deposited the instrument within the UN. Honorable members, I want to emphasize the role of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Our role is literally coordination. Coordination. So we coordinate everything international relations across government, for all arms of government, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And in so doing, we host a lot of interagency meetings to ensure that we are unified. Now, we have a challenge, and we are trying to help in this coordination. I don't know whether I'll be out of order to say this, but let me say it anyway. We have situations in our ministries where we know Minister X has been involved in subject matter X. And then a delegation is formed, and the senior minister also goes to the event. And the team is aware that the junior minister is actually more conversant of the subject matter, and we struggle. We struggle to undo the mess, and then the senior minister goes in, they are invited to talk, and we are on our own, so to say. So we need to improve coordination across government and even within Parliament. In some instances, we are oversubscribed. In the 9th Parliament, we were around 26 MPs in New York, and they only needed for a session only 3 people. So 23 found other things to do, largely because only 3 could be accommodated. So that oversubscription, I think, is something that we need to look into. Then, as I move towards the end, as I said earlier, we need to work with MOFA so that our foreign engagements have clarity on official position, we define our boundaries, and agree on strategy on how to engage. I'll say this, a number of countries beat us because they plan better. And we must improve, both as the executive and as the legislature. Because there could be somebody from Parliament who is a better subject matter than me. There is no harm in, because it's Uganda you're representing, if you're out there, ask that person to deliver the message or even discuss it and debate it, as opposed to you who may not deliver it to the extent required. Now we coordinate foreign invitations, and in the case of Parliament, I request that members of Parliament channel invitations through the clerk to Parliament. If you want to invite, let's say, an ambassador to a function or whatever it is, you channel all that through the clerk to Parliament to us. And that's meant to maintain diplomatic consistency. And then, in case of doubt, we kindly request that you seek clarity. We're always there to support, but it's also critical that you document all your diplomatic engagements for one simple reason. Every time you engage a diplomatic entity that is sophisticated, everything that you say is documented, either in your presence or as you see or on a phone. And that is what is transmitted as a cable. Now, if you don't have a record of what you have said, and in the future it leaks and you're misrepresented, you have no fallback position. So it's critical that you keep records for future reference. As I conclude, honorable members, I want to say that there are some imperatives for safeguarding our interests. And those imperatives are, the first one is that you must align with official government policy. You must align with official government policy. For instance, if you're attracting an investor to come in Uganda, don't tell them lies or mislead them that VAT shall be at 15%. We all know VAT is 18%, isn't it? So we must all align with official government policy. And then, of course, certain things can be emotional. Recently, I will talk about this because it was in the public domain, the African CDC, Center for Disease Control in Addis, decided to lump Uganda and our brothers in DRC, and they said the number of Ebola cases in Uganda and Ethiopia are, and they gave a number. Now that number, I think, was more than 300, 300 plus. But we all know that in Uganda, we had 2 cases, 2 fatalities of foreigners that came to Uganda, and the total has not exceeded 19. Now, if you're in a meeting and you're discussing, it's very easy to be emotional and say, no, but Uganda has 19. But it's important that you maintain your calmness, but put your point across. In other words, do not engage in disagreements. Just state the points, and the points shall be taken. And in doing so, we engage by respecting each other. Now, I'll have the rare opportunity to welcome the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. You're welcome, Right Honorable. And she came in as I was concluding. Right Honorable, I don't know whether that was deliberate, but I've just been presenting a paper on safeguarding Uganda's interests in the regional and global spaces. And that marks, ladies and gentlemen, the end of my submission. I thank you very much for listening to me.
Honorable members, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Vincent Bajire, gave us a very good presentation and indeed did justice to the topic. For those who came late, you've missed a lot. This is a critical topic for us members of Parliament. Because of time, I am not going to take a lot of time into what he's been presenting. But the highlights has been on the roles of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the coordination roles. He cited an example in the 9th Parliament. We do also recall of one issue in the 12th Parliament, where I think Uganda sent a delegation of a number that was a little quite higher than expected. So we need to know this as members of the 12th Parliament, and we need to coordinate. He spoke about the issues of parliamentary diplomacy, our national interests. And regarding our national interests, I just want to emphasize the issue of economic and commercial diplomacy. Most times when presentation is on foreign affairs, colleagues, we concentrate more on the issue of, we don't tend to pay keen interest, but we should be mindful that this is a ministry that brings a lot of funds into the economy of the country that gets to fund the budget. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the next presentation. I'll request that you write your questions to the Permanent Secretary and pass it to our staffs who will be submitting it here to the Permanent Secretary as he prepares to respond at the end of the sessions. Meanwhile, we are going to have the next presentation on deepening East African community integration. And I am pleased to have the Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Nantongo Ziwa, the Speaker Emeritus of the East African Legislative Assembly, who is the one coming to make a presentation on this topic. It is my pleasure to introduce Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Nantongo Ziwa, the Speaker Emeritus, East African Legislative Assembly. Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa is a distinguished Ugandan legislator, regional leader, and advocate of regional integration, women's empowerment, and public service. She served as a Speaker of the 3rd East African Legislative Assembly from 2012 to 2017. Among the noble legislative achievements during her tenure were the enactment of the East African Axle Load Control Act 2013, among others. Prior to serving as Speaker, Right Honorable Dr. Ziwa was a member of the 2nd East African Legislative Assembly, honorable colleagues, where she served on several committees, including the Committee on Communication, Trade, and Investment. Before joining East African Legislative Assembly, Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa served as the woman member of parliament for Kampala district in Uganda in the 6th and 7th parliaments from 1996 to 2006. During that term, she also served as the commissioner of parliament, where they contributed to the health service scheme, which we are proud of today, among other things. Honorable members, Right Honorable Dr. Ziwa further served as chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Presidential and Foreign Affairs. She was also a member of the Constituent Assembly that debated, passed, and promulgated the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995. She has a rich profile. I will not go through all because of time, but Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Makerere University, a master's degree in gender and women's studies from Makerere University, a Master of Science degree in applied social research, and a doctorate studies in policy and public management from University of Stirling. She holds a postgraduate diploma in education, diploma in legislative drafting, diploma in trade and policy from the Trade Policy Training Center in Africa. Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa is a mother and happily married. Honorable members, join me in welcoming Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa to make her presentation. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the session, Honorable Catherine, the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga in the House, the Right Honorable Second Deputy Prime Minister and Leader of Government Business, the Third Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Ministers, dear friends, Honorable Members, Mr. Clerk, sir, and your staff. It gives me great pleasure to stand before you to address you on this important topic. First and foremost, let me take the opportunity to congratulate each one of you upon this very important opportunity to be a member of the 12th Parliament. Indeed, I want to congratulate the Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Jacob Oboth, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Thomas Tayewa, of course, the Honorable Ministers, we congratulate you, and all of you, dear members. And I want to wish you all a meaningful, resourceful, and an impactful term. This honor, which has been given to me, I want to appreciate it because for over 10 years, I've been a participant in the East African community integration, and I feel proud to be part of it. Honorable members, of course, the role of parliamentarians in the integration process may be very, very wide, but at least I've been requested that I talk about the deepening of the East African integration and the role of parliamentarians or partner state parliaments. And I'm going to be as brief as is possible because I know there is also a next presentation which is similar. If we talk about integration, integration actually refers to the act or process of combining separate elements or systems into a single, unified, and functioning whole. That is important. And East African community comprises today of 8 partner states. The original 3, which is Uganda, Kenya, United Republic of Tanzania. These were the original partner states who in 1967 were members of the East African community, which collapsed in 1977 and re-established in 1999. Rwanda and Burundi joined in 2007. South Sudan joined in 2012. DRC joined in 2019. Somalia joined in 2023. And the population is estimated to be 525 million people. And we have a belief that these are similar people. We are one people for one destiny. The treaty for the establishment of the East African Community was signed in 1999, and every joining partner state had to assent to the treaty and to abide to the principles. Also, the treaty spells out the objectives, it spells out the undertakings and the implementation of the integration process. And this is the foundation law. It defines the stages through which the integration process will follow. Also, the treaty establishes the organs and institutions of the East African community. And here, EALA, East African Legislative Assembly, is one of the organs. it also defines the roles of each of the organs. For instance, specifically, the objectives of the integration agenda are spelled out in Article 5.1, mainly to develop policies and programs aimed at widening and deepening cooperation among partner states in critical sectors. There are many, but those listed include political, economic, social, cultural, research, technology, security, defense, legal, and judicial affairs. And each of these has a chapter in the treaty with spelled out roles and responsibilities. Article 5.2 defines the path or the stages or the pillars of the integration, namely the customs union, which was signed in 2005, the common market, which was signed in 2010, the monetary union, which was signed in 2014 and is still ongoing, and ultimately the political federation, although to date there is a confederation framework which is being followed. And to date, the organs and institutions, including the summit, the Council of Ministers, where Right Honorable Kadaga now is the chair, and Uganda actually is the chair of the summit also, His Excellency the President, and IALA. These have already been put in place, and they have also put in place various legislations and acts and policies to facilitate the integration agenda. These are very strategic to the deepening of the EAC. Article 50 and Article 65 enjoins parliamentarians and national parliaments to be part of the deepening process of the East African Community agenda. For instance, the elections of members, and this relates with IALA directly, because these members are the ones to debate the bills and the acts, and they are the ones who are the representatives of Uganda, for instance, or the partner states where they come from, to the East African Legislative Assembly. Widely speaking, East African community integration has registered success towards the widening scope. For instance, from 3 partner states to 8 partner states, that's not a mean achievement, it's a very big achievement. The intricacies involved in those negotiations are very, very deep. And we congratulate all the members of the organ. But we have not received yet an equally corresponding deepening scope. Because in many areas of cooperation, you may find that you ask people about the East African community, and many of them may not give you the actual answer, or they may not even know the opportunities which are available. So there is a very big role which we parliamentarians, who are the representatives of the people, which we have to do. I want briefly to talk about the strategic roles of Parliament. First and foremost, the most important role is the legislative role. And IALA, for instance, enacts laws to operationalize all the areas of cooperation listed in the treaty, and the protocols and the policies passed by the summit and the council. And these laws have to be domesticated, as Honorable Bajire has just told us. Some of them have to be followed. They must be our rules which we make in Uganda, for instance, or in partner states, must align with those passed in the East African community. Every year, the Appropriation Act is passed. We've passed some, for instance, the Axle Load Act, the One-Stop Border Post Act, the Interconnected Customs Systems, among others. These ones must be critically followed, and they help to find that the benefits of the integration are realized. Also, harmonization of national legislation with regional frameworks. For instance, the laws of trade. For instance, the mutual recognition, for instance, of academic and professional qualifications is very important. And in many cases, we find that those aspects have not been followed through, and some of the institutions who are responsible for pushing for some of those areas are trying, but not successfully. The Inter-University Council, for instance, Inter-University Council of East Africa, has a great job to do around professional and academic qualification harmonization. Facilitate implementation of treaties and agreements in all sectors. And these are key sectors. Sectors like trade, sectors like security, sectors like education, communication, among others. The single customs territory, for instance, is a very key framework which must be followed through. And Parliament has a role to play, particularly where some of the areas may not be in harmony. The other responsibility Parliament has is the oversight function. This is a key function because Parliament must hold executive accountable, especially in the implementation of East African Community commitments. Members, for instance, should put questions to the Council. They should always make sure that they act like the watchdogs, also in the East African Community institutions, which are many. They need also to monitor commitments like those which are critical to our people, particularly people in business, like the removal of non-tariff barriers. This is critical, but every day, if you drive on those roads, you will see the non-tariff barriers, and they are still on the roads. They are also responsible to ensure transparency and harmonized budgeting programs. In most cases, you find that some of those programs are desirable, but they are not funded. So there is a role to play, particularly committees which are responsible, for instance, for the East African community. The representative role is a very critical role. It includes citizen participation and relationship with them. As members of Parliament, it's very important to popularize the East African community. Popularize it, its benefits, its opportunities, and how it works, the modus operandi, how it works. If I want to get an export license, what do I do? I've grown my maize, and I want to take it to Kenya. I have a lot of matoke. I want to take it to Kenya. I have a lot of pineapples. I want to take it. How do I go about it? So they must know that they have to go to the Ministry of Trade and get an export license. And they must know what it takes. And all those small details of phytosanitary issues which must be followed. So in your constituency, you may be responsible for actually explaining some of this. I know the Ministry of ESC holds sessions with the communities, but they are not sufficient to reach every corner of the country. We as representatives will have a very big responsibility there. Ensure visibility of the East African community. This is very important. When the anthem is sung, it's very important that you relate with it. And for instance, if the Uganda anthem is sung, I think I want to salute Uganda. because His Excellency the President said, let the East African anthem be sung along with the Uganda anthem. And that has made a very big impact. Let us continue to ensure that even in our local constituencies, let these anthems be sung. It makes a meaning when somebody hears that anthem. In schools, the usage of national IDs when we are traveling, the presence of joint programs. For instance, the programs of security, we thank them. They hold joint programs, and they are very, very effective and meaningful. Even the inter-school games, the parliamentary games. Thank you very much, members of parliament, for this very important activity. It helps us to build bond among us others. Committee visits. If a committee of agriculture of Uganda visits the committee of agriculture of Kenya, that will create a lot of bond and deepening and understanding of issues. Let's also foster a people-centered integration process. Let people know and understand. Let it not be an elitist subject. Let people know that if we integrate, it's for their benefit. Let's try to use the common language, the Swahili. Most of us, particularly in Uganda, we are very, very, very poor in Swahili. Now, we as leaders, as parliamentarians, let's, Mr. Clerk, organize for us some little course, and at least we know habari za asubuhi, pole na kazi, those small words, so that we are able to relate. Also, let's promote the common values. I want to appreciate the Ministry of Education and Sports for the AFCOM, which is coming in 2007, which is going to be played throughout East Africa. It's a very big achievement, and I think it will enable us, East Africans, to move from one corner to another of East Africa so that we're able to really feel as East Africans. You know what is going on in the World Cup. Others are in Canada, others are in, that's what we need to do. We also have the duty to strengthen the parliamentary diplomacy. The feel of a parliamentarian out there is still very strong. People take you as their person, our representative, our mother, our father. They name us differently. Let this be enhanced through us taking their issues, and in taking their issues, we are able also to elevate them to the East African level and also reciprocate. Let's relate with committees responsible for the East African community integration. Let's also revamp those committees or activities which were relating within our partner states. For instance, the Nanyuki series. Some of the members of Parliament of Uganda were very key in establishing the Nanyuki series. Now, I don't know, it feels a bit lukewarm, but it needs to be done. There has to be also the Amani Forum. Some of the members of the Parliament of Uganda were even the chairpersons of the Amani Forum. Let's revive these ones. They help us to strengthen the parliamentary diplomatic relations, which is key in deepening the East African community integration. Let's promote joint sessions and the interparliamentary dialogue. Even where there is crisis or conflict, parliamentary dialogue can help. Let's foster a people-centered integration process. Let's have stakeholders meetings. Let's have the media. Let's have the university students. Let's have seminars for traders, for youth, for women, for professionals, engineers, lawyers. Let them share so that they are able to bring out that East Africanness. Let's also share best practices across partner states, basically on academic, in research, medicine, governance, among us others. For instance, there are required institutional mechanisms, and we must note that Parliament has a role. IALA has to take this role to be the legislative anchor. There are some times when we find that there are some vacuums of legislations in partner states. So some of these legislators must say, can we have this kind of legislation? And it is initiated. Let's also find an opportunity to ensure that the regional legislative frameworks exist. Let's pass the laws for the community. Let's also follow through implementation of programs and activities by our institutions. Some of the institutions, like Inter-University Council of East Africa, the Lake Victoria Fisheries, a very, very key institution for East Africans, Lake Victoria Basin Commission, KASOA, Swahili Commission, the Science and Technology Commission, and the East African Development Bank. Some of these are very key institutions of the East African community, but they're also fundamental in deepening the East African community integration. Some of our other responsibilities, some of them have been ably mentioned by Honorable Jire. Let's domesticate the regional laws so that these are in tandem with our laws. Let's align national policies with ESC objectives. As we elect members of IALA, let's make sure that there is accountability, particularly reporting back and giving a feedback from IALA. I think we have a weak arrangement here. I'm talking about it previously. We didn't have a lot of opportunities to come and meet with you as our voters or as our parliament. Let's improve on this. Follow through on popularization programs, that is media, talk shows. It feels good when you see a program or a talk show which is concerning East African community, or those many matters of trade. He talked about the chicks. The chicks are brought in, the eggs cannot go back. And definitely, these are key issues which we must talk about. Support the common values of the community. Let's have a campaign to talk about eating our food. Some of those, we ignore them, and later on, they hurt us. People like to take needle, but very few take little. Some of those small things, they're important, but they promote what we call integration of East Africa. Enhance grassroots engagements. Those grassroots engagements where there are barazas, let's go there. And as we conclude, let's talk about East African community. For instance, also in the parliamentary forums, let's ensure that we reestablish the interparliamentary seminar groups. For instance, the Committee on Trade, let them meet as committees of trade of East Africa. This will help us to strengthen what the Council has approved, what IALA has approved, and to help to deepen the East African community opportunities. Let's share the progress on the East African community integration. The progress is there, it's real, and it's enormous. Let's share it. People today must know that it took us a whole negotiation even to have the national identity card, just that identity card. And now you can go from Katuna to Gatuna with an identity card, or from Namanga of Kenya to Namanga of Tanzania with a national identity card. It was never the case. You needed a passport. But today we have it. Let the people know. When they know, then they can actually move within. Let's try to identify the challenges and areas of divergence, and we build consensus among legislators. Of course, you know, there are a lot of stereotypes among us. People will say, Uganda. You know, they were Tanzania, call us, all of us, Uganda. Uganda, iko na waizeka. So that's how they perceive us. But when they perceive you, others perceive others as lazy. These Tanzanians are lazy. But let's start to understand these stereotypes and see how do we build synergies? How do we remove those perceptions and we're able to move forward? Let's also try to understand and appreciate and popularize the progress of the EAC in our respective constituencies. Like in border communities, I don't see why anymore our people are still using panya across borders. Let them know that if something is not 20 or 100 kilos, they can go through the border. They don't need to go in those footsteps. You remember those footpaths around borders. Let them understand that you can take a passion fruit from Uganda to Kenya and vice versa. Some of the key challenges which we are facing, first and foremost, is the limited funding of the EAC. For instance, the withdrawal of partnership fund support affected many programs of the East African community. For instance, I would testify and say, during the time when I was speaker, and we worked upon our strategic plan. For instance, this strategic plan was funded by the Westminster Foundation Democracy. They were able to fund it. You know very well that the headquarters was part funded by the German government. So the withdrawal affected the East African community very heavily. Subsequently, there is a lot of inadequacy of funding for many, many activities. There is insufficient budget funding, and the Right Honorable Minister, Honorable Kadaga, will tell you, and I want to congratulate her, because at least now they have moved ahead to move and say, let's have 50% equal contribution, and then the 50% should be according to your strength of the GDP. And I want to pray that this can move, at least to improve on the status of the East African community. The weak institutions, some of them are weak, not because they should be weak, but they are, for instance, very understaffed. Now, as the community grows bigger, the committees remain the same, funded by the same staff, and indeed, there is a lot of, I would say, non-palatableness. Limited citizen awareness, and this in itself, we call upon higher civic education. And if you look in the East African community budget, you may see that there is virtually a nil budget around there. But this is where we should put most of our effort so that we are able to draw many of our East Africans towards appreciating and deepening what we call the East African community. Leveraging political goodwill, both at summit level and at Council of Ministers level and Assembly. When I talk about goodwill, this integration is driven by goodwill. And I want to congratulate and appreciate His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. He's been very passionate about the East African community integration. And likewise, we pray that the Council of Ministers, yesterday we were sharing somewhere, and I heard that sometimes other ministers of Council of Ministers don't attend the assembly, and only Right Honorable Kadaga is seated. And, you know, it becomes difficult. If the members raise issues, how will they be picked, and how will they be championed? So, leveraging political goodwill is very, very important, but also at the level of the assembly. Even the assembly members must know that they have a very important role to play. Of course, the biggest challenge is clinging on political sovereignty. Many of us don't want to cede some of our powers to the supra authority. We want to remain, we Ugandans, sisi wa Tanzania. You know, when I say that, you know what I mean. Even when we go there, there's a bit of caucusing. And that caucusing in itself is defeatist to the East African community integration. Of course, Those loose joint parliamentary initiatives must be made permanent. Let's find a framework to make them permanent. Maybe once every quarter, let's have the committees meet, the Committee on Trade and Investment, the Committee of Agriculture, the Committee of Social Services. Let's look at the universities. Under the Common Market Protocol, we are talking about free movement of people. If you have got a job in Arusha or in Nairobi, you have to move with your children. For instance, he's in P5. When he goes to Kenya, I don't know whether it's P5, because for them they go to P8. It becomes difficult. So we need that harmonization to be done. And I know it's still a very big job. And this is where deepening comes in. That would be the deepening. If for instance, I get a job in Tanzania or in Kenya, can I move with my social security benefits? And what I get there can also be transferred to my social benefit in Uganda, among us others. So all these are still areas which would prove that really we are enjoying the East African community opportunities and we are deepening the East African community. As I conclude, the East African community integration is a very necessary step to support the well-being of the 525 million people, markets, production, among us others. We as parliamentarians, we need to be good custodians of the good vision of prosperity. The widening is happening spontaneously, but the deepening is not felt, yet even key stakeholders do not feel it. Even among us as parliamentarians, we are key stakeholders, but we don't even feel it. So parliamentarians and YALA, who are the custodians of the EAC vision, they have a big role to play and must purposefully legislate with integrity. They must oversee the process. They must also follow the projects and programs and also help the collaborative border communities with a purpose. Let those who are living among us each other know that they are brothers and sisters. Let's also have purposeful civic education using media and also, for instance, grassroots structures. When you go to meet your LCs or the sub-county council, let's talk about these benefits. Where you feel that your constituency is strong, let it tap in the East African community market. Encourage the summit members to remain committed to the cause and the vision. This I'm saying it out so that every other time we know that the summit is so critical, is a critical driver in the East African community integration. Let's move from integration on paper to integration in practice. Let integration, East African community integration, not be viewed as an elite project, but as a citizen reality. Let the sovereignty ego not supersede the EAC vision of prosperity. Thank you very much. Asante sana waheshimiwa, for God and my country.
Honorable members, join me once again in thanking the Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa in a very special way for her presentation this afternoon. Right Honorable, thank you for doing justice to your paper on deepening the integration of East Africa. Honorable members, with the struggle the clerk made in ensuring that we get the best of the best to come and share with us in this retreat, we cannot afford to have a house where some members are too reluctant, some are dozing. I would like to invite Coach Bob. Coach Bob to come in front here and Let members rise up, shake a bit, wake us up properly as we prepare to receive the next presentation.
May we stand up, please? Simple movements, waking up our bodies and minds. Simple, simple. We'll take it simple. We raise the hands, both of them. We keep the smiles. We all say that health is wealth. Happiness is vital. Exercise is medicine. Exercise is medicine. Exercise is medicine. Simple movements. We keep the smiles. Get ready. Get ready for the great presentation. Okay, we turn around like this. We count together. 1, 2, 3, 4. We keep the smiles. We just count together as a team. Teamwork. One team, one dream. One team, one dream. Repeat after me. One team, one dream. One team, one dream. One team, one dream. One team, one dream. Okay, we finish up. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach Bob, for that. I want to believe that members are now feeling better. Honorable members, I continue to remind you to write your questions concerning the topic that the Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa presented, and you pass them to our staffs who will forward them to the presenter to respond at the end of the session. Allow me now invite you together so that we move to the next topic, and that is the integration agenda. It is very critical that after looking at safeguarding Uganda's interests, deepening the integration of East Africa, now we look at the integration agenda, current projects under the East African Community. And honorable members, this topic is going to be presented to us by the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. It is my pleasure, therefore, at this juncture, to introduce to you briefly the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. The Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga is a distinguished Ugandan lawyer, stateswoman, and one of the country's most accomplished parliamentary leaders. She currently serves as the first Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda and the Minister of East African Community Affairs, a position she has held since 2021. Honorable members, she has also represented the people of Kamuli. She's also representing the people of Kamuli district as the district woman representative in Parliament since 1989. Right Honorable Kadaga previously made history as the first woman to serve as Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda, leading the 9th and 10th Parliament after serving as Deputy Speaker of the 7th and 8th Parliament. Earlier in her public service career, she held several ministerial portfolios, including Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Minister of State for Communication, and Minister of State for Regional Cooperation. The Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga was the first Ugandan woman to establish a legal firm. She was the president of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, a respected leader at the national, regional, and international level. Right Honorable Kadaga has served in numerous parliamentary and professional bodies, advancing democratic governance, regional integration, and parliamentary diplomacy. She is widely recognized for championing gender-sensitive legislation and was instrumental in enactment of the Certificate of Gender and Equity Compliance under Uganda's Public Finance Management Act. Honorable members, the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga is the godmother of dual citizenship law of Uganda. She championed it and made sure it was passed when she was the Speaker. We look forward to her becoming the midwife of the East African Federation. Allow me at this juncture to invite her to come and take the podium and make her presentation. Right Honorable, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Good afternoon. Right Honorable the Second Deputy Prime Minister, Right Honorable the Third Deputy Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, Members of Parliament, the Clerk, I'm happy to be here today. It's really a pleasure to be able to interact with you, and I congratulate you on being elected to represent your people in the 12th Parliament. I must take this opportunity to appeal to this Parliament to have the courage to embrace Swahili. I remember we developed the rules of procedure for Parliament in Swahili, developed the prayers in Swahili, but the outgoing Parliament leaders were afraid of Swahili, so did not allow members to study Swahili. I want to ask the clerk, at least one day a week, have the prayers in Swahili, because they are there in the office. It's part of our work in the region. You've been told about the East African community. Honorable Zoa has talked about it. I just want to add a few things. That this is a regional market from the Indian Ocean up the Atlantic. So there are very, very many opportunities. Somalia alone comes with 3,000 kilometers of coastline. All these opportunities for trade for our people. You have been told about the customs union, which is the premier pillar, which is supposed to ease the integration milestone, and its foundation, which has been in force since 2005. We established a common external tariff and a free trade zone. We also have the Common Market Protocol, assuring the freedom of movement of goods, of persons, of labor, of services, of capital, the right of residence, and the right of establishment. We also have the Monetary Union, which is still not yet in place. This is one of the biggest headaches we have, in that each time I go to the borders, the people of Uganda and the other countries complain about the fluctuations in currency, the money they lose. You come from Sudan, change money, go to Congo, change money, you lose, then go to Malaba, change money. So this is one of the things we want to fast track. Within the treaty, we are supposed to have a convergence criteria, but we are 8. So it's not possible to have a convergence criteria altogether. We have agreed that we shall use the principle of variable geometry so that those who are ready can move, have the common currency, as we wait for the others to catch up. The big one is the political confederation. Honourable members, African continent, if we don't unite, we are finished. Small Uganda, small Kenya, small Tanzania, we are finished. So it's really, really important that we market the issue of the political confederation and embrace it. As I speak now, the government of Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and Kenya have completed consultations on the political confederation. We await Tanzania, South Sudan, Congo, and DRC. DRC and the Republic of South Sudan conduct their consultations. However, we have agreed that using the principle of variable geometry, those who are ready can start the confederation, and the others can join us later. Because time has gone, we have lost time. So I'm hoping that now with the 4 which have conducted consultations, we're working on a framework to see whether we can move with the 4, and others will join us later. There are a number of projects we have asked to talk about. We've talked about the single customs territory. This allows transit times to be reduced. For instance, goods from Mombasa to Busia used to take 21 days. We've now reduced it to 2 to 5 days. We also have the simplified trade regime. Small traders at the border who trade not more than $2,000 are able to trade without tax. Although one of the things we need to do is to ensure that our people at the borders actually know this regime. One day I went to Malaba, and the woman told me that they still swim in River Malaba to cross with the goods. And yet the border is there, and if they have their simplified trade regime, they can use it. But they're still swimming the river to carry goods on their back, sometimes being attacked and so on. So we need to inform our people about these opportunities. We also have the customs bond. We launched it recently. It will allow traders to secure their cargo with a single journey bond and reduce costs, ease border delays, and free up business capital. We also have the issue of elimination of non-tariff barriers. This is my biggest headache in the community. This last weekend, I've been battling with the government of Kenya on their Finance Act because it imposed new taxes on sugar, on cement, on tiles, and yet we are together. Last year I was fighting with Tanzania. That stopped our small people from, you can't operate a salon, you cannot operate a small hotel, you can't cut hair, you cannot sell telephones in Tanzania. That was their, so I had the whole of last year I was battling with Tanzania over that matter. Now I'm battling with the Kenya on the issue of sugar and other things. So we are together, but not quite together. People still believe in their sovereignty, their rights, their money, their revenue. So this is one area we need to work on to ensure that we agree. That's why it's important to have the confederation. If we had the confederation, we would have one finance bill for the whole community. But now they have, each country has got their own, and it's their right because they're a sovereign state. We also have the support to micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. Every year we hold a trade fair where our people go and market their goods. I'm happy to say that out of this, the government of Rwanda has been buying beds from Uganda, made by our local people. to use in the hospitals. So the opportunity is there, and in the SMEs. We are looking at quality management, promote quality of culture and inspire excellence. We have the regional quality awards every year, recognizing achievements of the enterprises which have excelled. We also have in road transport a number of things. We are working on Kavingo, Kasulu, Manyovu, Rumonge, Gitaza Road, Malindi, Lugalunga, Hororo, Tanga, Bagamoyo, Rusahunga, Rusumo, Kayonza, Kigali roads. We are doing Masaka, Mutukula Chaka, Uganda and Kasulu, Umnazi roads. The study for Uganda-Kenya Express project has been concluded, and we had the Vestas conference last year. We are looking for funds to have detailed study on the Rwanda-Burundi, Akanyeru Belt roads. And we also have designs for the Elegu, Gulu, Nimule, Juba route, and upgrade of Moroto, Lodwa, Todonyang, Kibish road, so that we're able to transit. On road transport, rail transport, the standard gauge railway from the port of Mombasa to Kampala via Malaba will progress to Kigali. Recently, we're in Kisumu to launch the sector from Kisumu to Malaba. Soon to be crossing Malaba onto Kampala and then Kasese, and onward to DRC via Mpondwe. We also have studies for Toro, Gulu, Nimule, Juba route, and there Gulu, Pakwach, Aru, Avura, Aru line, and also Isaka, Kigali, Mirama Hills, Bihanga, Kasese, Mpondwe, 500 kilometers railway. We have a common power pool, East African Common Power Pool, tapping the power supply within the region. We have a number of transboundary interconnection projects between Uganda, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, which have enabled Uganda to export power to these countries, generating revenue for the economy. We also have one plant for Uganda RSS in Juba. Hydropower, we have a common project in Hikagati Murongo, 14 megawatts, which are shared between Uganda and Tanzania. We have the Shongezi hydropower project between Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, that's 39 megawatts. On the maritime projects, we have the Lake Victoria multimodal transport communication project. Search and rescue centers have been built at Entebbe, Kazi, Mwanza, among others. Bokassa Port development is ongoing. Port Bed has been refurbished to connect with Mwanza and Kisumu. And we're also working on developing Toroko and Kasenyi ports. We have 20 one-stop border posts to facilitate 24 operations around gazetted borders. This quickens business. For instance, they are on Busia, Malaba, Mutukula, Katuna, Mirama Hills, Elegu, Mpondwe, Swam, Goli, among others. We also encourage partner states to identify and gazette more borders. I've been telling the people for Busia that I'm working hard to ensure that we have another 2 more border posts at Rwanda and whatever, so that we can decongest Busia and Malaba. On tourism and wildlife development, we have the common Visit East Africa, Feel the Vibe. We were the international tourism boss in Germany in 2025 to amplify the brand of East Africa, and it's working. Although I think we need to do more, especially in Uganda. More tourists are ending up in Tanzania and Kenya than coming to Uganda. So we need to do some more work on that one. Agriculture and food security, we have a list of harmonized guidelines for testing of veterinary ectoparasites in order to ensure safety, efficiency, and quality. We have the standardization of quality assurance methodology and testing. I think those are majorly all. Now, with the monitoring, we have done most of the laws. We have done majorly 2 of the laws. There's only one which is pending. But as I said, we have been trying very hard to make sure that we move quickly. And last month, we had a meeting with the Secretary General of the EAC and the President, and we agreed that he should invite the governors of central banks so that we take a decision and start moving on those which are ready to start with the common currency as we develop and wait for the others. So, friends, those are in summary some of the things that we are doing in the community. We also have on security, on the EAC-led Nairobi peace process on peace in the Eastern DRC, we have a joint EAC-SADC oversight committee led by President Obasanjo. It has President Uhuru, President Masisi, President Samba, President Zode. They're working on the peace process in DRC. As you know, it's a big headache. We also have, we have launched the Africa Leaders Council for peaceful coexistence. We have been working with the Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia to ensure that our Arctic communities are living peacefully and are working for the development of the region. So I want to thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. Please support East African community, support integration.
Okay. Thank you, honorable members. Join me in thanking in a special way the Right Honorable Rebecca Litwala-Kadaga for her presentation this afternoon to us and for really keeping time. She's done very well. Honorable members, from the first presentation, we've heard of our interest in the global space. Global spaces, honorable members. And we've had a presentation from the Permanent Secretary on safeguarding Uganda's interests in the regional and global spaces. The second presentation in deepening East African community. And finally, the integration agenda that has been presented to by the Right Honorable Rebecca Litwala-Kadaga. We are going to have responses to the questions, and the presenters will stay where they are, except we'll request that you try to make good use of about 5 minutes to respond to the questions that were written to you. However, I received a concern which we've decided to okay the request made by the youth member of parliament. An urgent issue from a young youth member of parliament, the Honorable Mercy. I'll give time for Honorable Mercy to ask a question on the microphone from wherever she is. Then after Honorable Mercy, I'll request the Permanent Secretary, the Honorable Vincent Bajire, to respond to the questions that were raised to his attention. Is Honorable Mercy there? Seems she's not in the house. Okay, honorable members, let me...
Yes, I'm here.
Proceed.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. To all the presenters, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. But my question goes to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There is a case that is going on in this country of human trafficking. Many Ugandans are being trafficked to India, to China, to Cambodia, and these are young people. And when they get to those countries, they are forced into prostitution. And people who are taking them are benefiting from them. They get money. Like these young people, they start doing prostitution, and these traffickers get money. So my question goes to the Permanent Secretary. What have you done as the ministry to track these human traffickers? Because they keep doing that, and they are benefiting from this. Then also, what have you done as a Ministry of Foreign Affairs to make sure that you sensitize the country, especially the young people who are being promised for jobs in India, in China, then they end up in prostitution. And as we talk right now, I think last week I got a call from the young people in Cambodia who are stranded and they need help from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So my request to you is to see these young people are repatriated back to Uganda. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me now request the Permanent Secretary to respond from where you're seated.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I spoke about oversubscription, and as you can see, I'm oversubscribed. But let me start by addressing the Honorable Kanyesi's issue. First of all, it is true that there are many Ugandans who have been trafficked. Even as we are seated here talking, there are some who are on the planes departing and they are being trafficked. That's how absurd it is. You made mention of Ugandans in Myanmar working with IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and with support from Echi, the president. We returned in excess of 100 Ugandans from Myanmar. The unfortunate thing is, on the flights on which Ugandans were returning, there were Ugandans who had been misled that there were jobs in Thailand, and indeed, as soon as they land in Thailand, they are taken across the border back to Myanmar. Unfortunately, as you'll appreciate, we don't have appropriation for returning Ugandans as such. The operation that is happening right now has had, again, Echi, the president's intervention, where he requested or directed Uganda Airlines to fly to South Africa and bring back these Ugandans that are in distress. The other unfortunate aspect is that fellow Ugandans are trafficking Ugandans. The case of India, we have tried our level best within our means to try and track these ladies that traffic fellow women, young women, and take them in prostitution in India. We have rescued a number of them from captivity because they actually held as captives. They're used as a business. They are a product of some individual or the other. It's extremely sad. What we need indeed is to work with all arms of government, external security, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, to apprehend these individuals. Otherwise, what they are doing is extremely unacceptable. But having said that, we've done our level best to return Ugandans. But also, we have another scenario. When you are returning Ugandans from Tehran, where war had started, some of them told us to leave them alone. And indeed, we left them alone because we could not force them. We could not force them to board and return home. And even those who are trafficked, some indeed determined that they have better welfare even in a state of being trafficked. Madam Chair, if I may, as I said, I'm oversubscribed. I have a number of issues. But there is one that relates to South Africa. In terms of, somebody has asked the Honorable Swale Mpata has asked about the proportion of Uganda's investment in South Africa versus what they have here. And I think that's a very relevant question for us to delve into. What I'm certain is South Africa as a country makes a lot more than Uganda makes. If you look at the businesses that I have in Uganda, I mean, if you talk about MTN, it's the largest telecom company here. They repatriate resources back to South Africa. If you talk about Stanbic, the largest bank here, again, they repatriate resources back to South Africa. And if you look at the composition of these small businesses by Ugandans who are actually surviving, it's quite inconsequential. What we are doing is that as a ministry, first of all, we've been engaging with the authorities to make sure that they do not penalize Ugandans that have overstayed, because we have a challenge. There are many Ugandans who are undocumented, who have overstayed their visas. Someone got a visa to go as a tourist. He has been there for the last 10 years. Now, what we've done is to begin with to negotiate that those ones are left to live without being penalized. Otherwise, South Africa reserves the right to penalize any individual who has overstayed. Luckily, the authorities have accepted. So those are returning. Now, there's another layer. There are those who had actually extremely big businesses. Some of them owned schools that are there. Some of them owned factories. And they're asking us that at government, how do you assist us to bring some of the infrastructure that we have back into the country? So our minister, my minister, will be traveling to South Africa to have that next level of negotiation. As it is right now, it's safety first, return the individuals back home, and then we see how we proceed with their businesses. The third question related to South Africa was, how are you going to reintegrate them in Uganda when they return? And that's a legitimate question. Honorable members, I want you to support a plan that is still in the pipeline that HE is going to propose that we undertake for purposes of reintegrating these individuals. There are those who have not been to Uganda in the last 15 years. There are those who actually don't even know where their relatives are. They left and they've not been in touch. So they need to be organized and put in some sort of integration program for them to be able to fit. And I think that's where programs such as PDM, Myoga, and so on shall come in to see how they assist these Ugandans who are in distress. The other, as I said, the questions were many. The other issue was about Justice Lydia Mugambe, who was arrested in the UK. Indeed, we have corresponded with the competent authorities in the UK to request that, if possible, the judge returns and serves her sentence back here in Uganda. We are waiting for their response. Should they accept, she will be returned to Uganda. Now, on the issue of clarification, someone wanted me to clarify the issue of, my apologies, I'm not mentioning names, but I'm addressing the issues in the interest of time. The issue of where he spoke about oversubscription. Colleagues, as you know, I've been a member of parliament before, and I know when I was in ICT, my committee had its own money, thanks to the Right Honorable here, Right Honorable Kadaga, and all committees have their own resources. Now, there could be a meeting, and 7 committees are sending individuals to that very meeting. But the organizers, on account of the whole being perhaps as big as this, can only accommodate 2,000 people. And they've decided only 4 seats for Uganda, but so many people have gone. My advice is that when you arrive in these countries, kindly reach out to our embassies, if there's an embassy in the country you're traveling, so that they assist in coordination of your visit, and also advise you in good hand that, colleagues, let the rest of us stay here at the mission and do some mission work, but only 4 will be accepted. I think that's the issue on a subscription that I thought I could raise. Now, the other one, again, it has been raised, I'm glad I'm not reading names, is about, my presentation was about safeguarding Uganda's interests. You cannot safeguard Uganda's interests without protecting the image of the country. It's extremely important. These two go hand in hand. For instance, you cannot go to Kenya to negotiate non-tariff barriers and they rob you in a hotel that is less than $50 and you're a member of parliament, and it makes headlines in the nation media that Mubunge wa Uganda alikuwa, and so on and so forth, you know, and they robbed you in did someone say Chester? Yes, in Chester Hotel in Nairobi. So it's critical, colleagues, as members, as a way of preserving and promoting the image of the country, that we look into the spaces, and again, for your own safety. The other one is about the denial of visas to many Ugandans. Friends, honorable members, visas are a sovereign matter. Even Uganda, in some cases, denies people visas, and we may not have much in terms of recourse. But in most cases, they will give a reason why they've denied a visa, but I don't expect that any member of parliament shall be denied or can be denied a visa for whatever purpose, unless otherwise. As I conclude, because they gave me 5 minutes, allow me to talk about, someone wanted to know what we are doing about the Ugandan who was killed. Indeed, this is a matter we are handling with the authorities. We are assisting in repatriating the body. That's not the best scenario, but that's what we are doing. And we are engaging the authorities to see that those who committed the crime of murder are apprehended. Now, someone asked a question on passports, the types of passports that MPs should have. As you'll appreciate, we have an entire law on passports and how they are administered. This law is managed by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and it prescribes who is entitled to which passport. Ministers, for instance, have a red passport, and all diplomats in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs indeed hold diplomatic passports. However, members of parliament, I think, use the service passport, and that is what they have been assigned. As I conclude, or in conclusion, there was an issue on whether we have a list of all the treaties that have been ratified. Yes, indeed, the ministry has a profile, a portfolio of all the treaties that have been ratified, and we are happy to share that with Parliament. We have shared it with our committee in the past on our foreign affairs, but we're happy to share it in general. And then now, there are Ugandans indeed in Dubai whose passports are confiscated until they have paid dues to their traffickers. That is true. Fortunately, with the UAE, the laws are very clear. This is prohibited. And if our embassy knows that there are any Ugandans who are being trafficked and their passports are being confiscated, we can work with the authorities in Dubai or the UAE in general to apprehend those individuals and return the passports. Honorable members, allow me to submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, honorable members, allow me to give time to the Right Honorable Dr. Margaret Ziwa to respond to the questions that were raised.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I'm lucky I don't have many questions, but I want also to say that some of them are cross-cutting. I may have to send them to the Right Honorable Alitwala Kadaga, because they really are seeking the current status and what do we envisage to be done. A member wanted to find out what linkages do we have between EALA and African Parliament, and how do we assess this cooperation if it exists. First, I want to say that the East African community is a bloc, and as we know, the ultimate goal would be to have one Africa. And in itself, the effort of establishing the African Parliament was also very important, and we elect members from the national parliament and send them to the African Parliament. But the African Parliament at the moment does not have legislative powers, and they are still working to see to it that they can secure some of these legislative powers, because the parliament, as a parliament, one of its key roles is legislation. But at the level of East African community, which has legislative powers, there has been opportunities of collaboration, sharing what I may call issues of concern. And in this kind of meetings, we have opportunity to meet at least with the several members of the African Parliament on topical issues. Normally they have the opportunity to encourage, for instance, Yala to take up some of these issues in perspective of legislation, or likewise they have to maybe encourage the respective members to go back to their respective parliaments to ensure that those areas of concern are legislated upon. I think it's still within a working process to see that the African Parliament should get some legislative powers, which in itself can also add to the strength of the collaboration and deepening the African spirit, the Pan-Africanism. I think in principle, it would be very good. But there is no framework which is established, but we meet in those kind of forums where there are issues which are common for purposes of interface. Another member, I think this one I'll also bring it to the attention of the Right Honorable, is concerned that, let me read it. I have seen East African passports produced and they are being used alongside national passports. How is the passport project faring? And in the same breath, in the same framework, could we experiment with developing the East African currency initially used alongside the country's currencies? And he was saying, what would be your take? So this is important, and I would appreciate that Right Honorable Kadaga would at an appropriate time make a comment. If I can mention some of the countries which took on the common currency, including the EU, initially when they were taking it up, some countries were also using their respective currencies until at a time when they phased them out. But I think we may get a clear position from the Right Honorable Kadaga. There is this very important concern that, in fact, he puts it as a request, kind request, government to put in writing the agreed positions on free trade at the borders. People still pay for their goods, whether small or big. So this is a concern, and I think let it be known so that the ministry would help and will have this put in writing, and the border posts should be informed so that this is clear. He's also concerned that there is no Ebola anywhere. Now, can government kindly free the country? Otherwise, we are losing a lot of business and tourism. This is a concern that has been raised, and I think it is all of us, maybe Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we need to have a take on this. Another member, Honorable Kadaga, is bringing, we thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, who is the chair of the East African Community Summit, and in their tenure, they had assented to 2 bills this year, the East African Appropriation Bill and the East African Statistics Bureau Bill. The 2 bills will contribute to deepening and widening the EAC integration. This is a statement, and I think it's very important and it's appreciated. These 2 bills truly will contribute to the deepening of the East African integration. This one is from my member from Maracha. In the spirit of deepening East African integration, key international joint border roads and infrastructure projects have to be jointly financed. What plans does EAC and Yala have in financing the construction of West Nile DRC Uganda Road that has 165 kilometers? It's a security and international border road. That one, I think, I'm not going to answer it now. At an appropriate time, it should be a question to the minister responsible on the floor of the House. I think I'm not going to have a take on it, but it's going to be framed and put as a question to the minister responsible. Of course, it's continuing, saying this road would deepen integration, open trade markets. Why doesn't EAC and Yala leave government of Uganda alone, or is financing the DRC-Uganda border roads? What plans are there for the Goli Zombo Arua Marachakoboko DRC-Uganda road, which is not along the border but is just in a border state? I think this is a very important question, but I think it will be brought and answered fully. It should come in the question session, question time on the floor of the House. There are several questions which have come in. And this one also I'll request the Right Honorable to also chip in. Ugandan traders still face non-tariff barriers, particularly at Malaba, Busia, despite the EAC Trade Act. Which Uganda laws are currently conflicting with EAC law, and what is Parliament doing to repeal them? I think this is a very technical question. We need to see what law was put in place to allow the free trade between countries, particularly allowing those goods of origin from Uganda or from Kenya. Maybe we need to start looking at it from that technical point of view. But again, the Honorable Minister will make a comment on it. The second one is Uganda contributes 27 billion to the EAC yearly. Can this Parliament track how that money is spent by the EAC Secretariat? If not, how do we call it integration when there is no financial oversight? I think it is important. Our committees, respective committees, which include the committee, the budget committee, but also the respective committees, both at the Yala level and at the East African, rather at the Uganda Parliament, have the role to scrutinize how this money is being spent. So let's not put it just in block. Let's disaggregate this amount, what was allocated where, and what was used for what, and then we shall be able to follow it up. Yes, there is follow-up. There is follow-up, and I know the committees both of Yala and the East African Community Committee follows on these expenditures. There is a concern here that integration is driven by summit of the heads of state. Parliament is informed, or is just informed. What mechanisms exist for Parliament of Uganda to bind the government before it commits Uganda in Arusha, or not after? We have a council, and that council has the obligation and the duty to make sure that whatever comes to the floor or to Parliament has been thoroughly discussed and approved. So I think there is no opportunity or there is no mishap of thinking that something will pass without being discussed. Everything which is handled, which goes to Arusha and approved, has been discussed. There is a bottom-up approach. From the Ministry of EAC, that's when the matters are taken to the East African community. Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda parliaments pass laws at different speeds. What joint mechanism exists for simultaneous harmonization? Or with Uganda, or will Uganda always be waiting for others? I don't think so. I think different parliaments have different time frame. Unless if you feel that there are those laws which were passed, which have not been domesticated or harmonized, then you are bound to bring up these laws to the attention of the Minister of the East African Community or the Minister of Internal Affairs. I think that is your job, and you can actually do it. Someone is concerned. Why is the EAC integration taking too long to be effected? Yes, yesterday we had an opportunity to share at a forum where we met, and one member was actually saying between 2001 and 2010, there was a lot of activities of the East African community implementation than maybe what is happening now. But I would say, if it's really my personal opinion, that now the necessary infrastructure, legal infrastructure, has been put in place. What is required is to translate or to see to it that these laws, programs, projects are seen to be put in place in various areas where they must be. Where, of course, some people have not been sensitized, they may not even know. For instance, the roads, some of the roads we see are very critical roads, and they are influenced or they are supported by the fact that they are truck roads, and they must be made. But in most cases, some of our people may not know. So I think we need a lot more sensitization, and maybe also to talk about them periodically in the East African community, maybe to update what has been done in this period, say a quarter or a year, so that eventually our people get to know. But the program is going on. The customs union is in place. The common market is in place. People are moving across borders. Yes, there are maybe some, I should call them some hiccups here and there, but I think there is a lot of progress being made. I think the last one, I have another one, I don't think so. Okay, there is a last one here. Okay, we had an East African community which collapsed. What strategies do we have to protect this one from the past mistakes which led the collapse of the first one? I think today we have more, I would call them it's more open. It is put to the people. We have different layers, whereby even if some of the things which put the previous community to collapse was poor governance, poor leadership. Today, there is a lot of dialogue at those levels. And you know that if there is a problem within the East Africa itself, there are mechanisms where maybe previous leaders of members of the summit are sent to help or to build consensus or to help in collaboration, so that there is what we would call harmony. I think there are mechanisms today which are better than what existed in 1977. So at least I'm more optimistic that this one is a more strong East African community than the previous one we had. My sister from Hoima had several questions, but is looking towards the practical measures that should be put in place so that the East African citizens can equally access employment and other opportunities arising out of the East African community integration. What I can reassure all of you, dear members, try to tell our citizens, our people, to do 3 things. Let them know the other languages. For instance, there is opportunity that you can get a job, for instance, in Kenya or Tanzania, but if you don't know Swahili, it's a limitation. Encourage our people to know the languages. And then the Inter-University Council of East Africa is helping us to make sure that if, for instance, you qualify with a low degree of Makerere University, is it the same low degree of University of Dar es Salaam, for instance? So those harmonizations and equating will help a lot of people to be able to freely move as the customs union and common market states. And I think we are on the right track. I think I can end here so that, Chairperson, I don't overstep. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Margaret Siwa, for responding to the issues that were raised to your attention.
Thank you very much.
Let me give Right Honorable Kadari.
I have several questions. Now, Honorable Sawa, good day. You wanted to know why there is no PWD in the East African Legislative Assembly, but this is a function of the House. I can confirm that when I was Speaker, we had a PWD. It was called Kasamba. But I don't know what happened during this time. So it's important that during the next election, we must ensure that the structure of the House is reflected. Opposition, independent, PWD, it is used, and so on. That's what should be according to the treaty. Now, Honorable Begumisa wants a border post either in Maziba, Buhara, or Kakondo. I will go discuss with Rwanda, because he has given us 3 points. I should discuss with Rwanda which is the most convenient, so that we can see which one to work, because we need one side and also their side. So I'll follow it up. Then there's also the honorable members from West Nile have got big issues on Goli, on Day, and all the others. There's one from Honorable Kuchinyi. She says she wants to know whether the border market in Goli will be operationalized. I'm going to check with the Ministry of Trade. We have been battling with the government to see that markets at the border are put into place. So I'm going to follow up this one of Goli to make sure that at least we build some markets. Badea, Onderi, Day, Guraju border post should be upgraded. We are going to look at that together with the government of Congo to see how it can be done. And also, it's also Ovura, Lira.
Guidance.
We are ready. For my side, we are ready. The agreement is ready. I'm waiting for the presidents to agree a date, and we sign that agreement. Ruakaka border post, there's a small one there, but I think we shall again discuss with the Kenya government to see which one is the most convenient. This is Mr. Wataka, the owner of Wataka, who's inquiring about Ruakaka. Let us discuss it with the Kenyans and see how we can improve it. Bernard Mugoya on the restrictions. Like I said, I've been battling with the Tanzanians over their finance bill the whole of last year because of restrictions on so many things. You know, you win some, they put on new ones, you clear one, and then they put another one. But we just need to keep on discussing because we can't force them. And until we have a federation where we can plan together and govern together, each government is sovereign. So they say, I want my money, this is my finance bill, I want my taxes. So it's really a problem, but we are going to continue working on it and discussing it. There's a question, when shall we have a leader in the East African community? That's what we are talking about, the confederation. if we have a confederation, we shall have leadership at the top, agreed upon by all the countries. That will help us to plan roads, finance, etc. But for now, we are still discussing. I want you to join me in demanding for the confederation. I wish we could have a debate in the House to demand the confederation, so that the Kenyans hear that you are demanding, the Tanzanians hear you are demanding, the Congolese hear that you are demanding. It will also help us in our campaign. Ismail Sowedi, we talked about the work permit fees, but I thought we had solved the issue of work permits. On our Wataka, what is it, Sowedi? What is the issue of work permit at the border? Honorable Sowedi, where is he? Sowedi, Ismail, Obusia?
Can you speak on the microphone?
Can you speak on the microphone?
Thank you, Right Honorable Kadaga. The issue of working permit, it's now when we are crossing to Kenya, especially we still have the issue of if we have trucks, they still ask for COMESA, and also they ask for COMESA if you are entering Kenya. If a trucker from Uganda is entering from Kenya, they ask for COMESA. Yet trucks which are coming from Kenya to Uganda to load from Busia, they are not asked for COMESA. Then the other thing is also about transit. Every truck which enters Kenya or Rwanda, they want that transit permit. If at all we are having integration, why do we still pay for COMESA and transit, yet we are still in East Africa?
Thank you very much. I was not aware that the COMESA rates are applying also at the border, but I will take it up. And also we have a tripartite meeting at the end of this month, East Africa, COMESA, and SADC. So we shall take it up on the issue of the trucks.
Then it's about the same on that line. We still also have issue whereby Kenyans are blocking milk from Uganda to enter Kenya. Even there is a time whereby our maize was banned from entering Kenya.
These are the battles I've been fighting, and I continue to fight.
Thank you.
Like I said, you clear one, they agree. Before you reach the border, they have issued a new permit. We go to Nairobi, we discuss, we take pictures, presidents are smiling. By the time we reach the border, a ministry has issued another permit. So it's really hard, but we are doing what we can. Now, Ono Kasaya, Patrick, please help me to advocate for the fast tracking of the ESC. It has taken long. People of East Africa are hungry for the community. We want to move and work together. Honorable Masiko, you talked about the common currency. Again, if you can help me to lobby for it. In the community there, I'm the only voice who's talked about a common currency, because I want to wait for convergence. But I've told them we can't wait for 8 countries. Let us move with the 3 or 4 which are ready. We start doing what the EU did. You use your currency and use the common currency until you ease it out. So help me to lobby on that one. Thank you so much. Is there anything else?
Further clarification, Right Honorable Speaker Emeritus, through you, Madam Chair. Fungaro Caps Hassan seeking for clarification.
Honorable Fungaro.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker Emeritus. I am seeking clarification about the operation of the East African Court of Justice. I have seen that the Parliament, IALA, does sittings on a rotational basis. They sit in the member states. We have seen them sit here in our Parliament. I've also seen the heads of state, that's say the summit, sitting in a rotational manner. Here and in Tanzania, at least I witnessed one of their sittings. But I've not seen the East African Court of Justice operating in Uganda. How do aggrieved citizens of the East African community of Uganda particularly bring a case to the East African Court of Justice? That is issue number one. Issue number two, there is a case of old people who worked in the former East African Railways and Harbors organization seeking for their terminal payment of retirement benefits. I have personally followed this issue up to your office, Right Honorable Speaker Emeritus, as Minister of East African Affairs. We went to the Minister of Finance. These people have failed to get their payment. Even some of them have died when following their terminal payments. Where should these people go? We have presented the issue in Parliament, it has not worked. We presented it to the Minister of Finance, it has not worked. We presented it in your office, it has not worked. Now we want to go to court. Where is the court?
Okay, on the East African Court of Justice, they were convened in Uganda in 2024. They were here for 2 months. So they do rotate. And they also go to the other countries. Now, concerning the mediation agreement, what I've done is to make the law, because there was no law. I've made the law on the East African mediation agreement. Anyone who wants relief can follow the law. The act is there. Follow it and get the benefits. At least I made that law after 40 years. It's now a law in this country.
Thank you, honorable members. Join me in thanking our presenters this afternoon in responding to the questions that were raised to their attention.
Oh, by the way, Chair, yes. You know, I think this debate and yesterday we had the Katega Memorial Lecture, but I think that we need to get time, maybe every quarter, to discuss the community, so that people can own it, advocate for it. It's not enough to come for induction, because I may not see you again until next year. So I think, Clerk, we should find ways of interaction, more regular. I don't know how our committee is doing, the committee and the forum. We have a forum of East Africa. I don't know whether members are here. So we need to wake up. And member from the forum, I'm opening your meeting next week.
Information?
Yes.
Some information, Right Honorable.
Information on the question, yes.
Thank you so much, Your Honorable Minister and all the presenters. My name is Dr. Siranda Gerald. I'm a member of IALA, serving for the first time. First term, I will be seeking for the second term for continuity. And these are my employers. This coming week from the 8th, thank you, from the 8th to the 10th, there will be the East African Community Awareness Week, specifically for the all members of Parliament, organized by the, in conjunction with MIACA, but the Committee on East African Community that will be taking through the processes. And this is a meeting that Right Honorable will be opening, but also the Secretary General of the East African Community will be here as well to open this meeting. And we will be going all across, engaging together for interaction. But I think there is also a process and a time for reporting. I think what we need to do is to make sure that the time you're doing the reporting, there is an awareness week where these issues are discussed. So I would implore that members join the awareness week so that we do a lot of interaction. And if there are areas that require registration in the House, we will also take on from there so that we push a lot of these matters, even on question and answer during the session of Council. I beg to submit.
Thank you, honorable members. That announcement was passed earlier. I'm glad the honorable was able to explain it further. So let us make good use of the opportunity next week for East African Community Week and understand more about EAC. We are coming towards the end of this session. Honorable members, chairing this session has been very easy for me because of very knowledgeably fine guest speakers that were identified by the clerk to Parliament. And join me in thanking them again for doing justice to the topics that were given to them. They are very sensitive people to diplomacy, so as chair, I enjoyed the session. So honorable members, allow me at this juncture to recognize the presence of Honorable Marshal Alengo, Jonam County MP, who previously worked in the Ministry of Internal Affairs as Senior Legal Officer, who designed the East African Community Passport. Thank you for being present. This house is rich to have people like you. Honorable members, let me also request the members of the East African Legislative Assembly to rise up for recognition. The current members of East African Legislative Assembly. Thank you. Let me now ask the former members of EALA to join the current members. I see the Honorable Wanyoto there. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate your work in East African Legislative Assembly. Honorable members, allow me to recognize in a special way the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Aruna Chayune Kasolo. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for being around. From the beginning of the session, he has been there. I think he has just stepped out. Thank you for being in the House. Members, with this, we have come to the end of our session. I would like to thank you for being a good audience. I request that we take serious issues of East African community, and we take serious issues that concerns our interest in the global spaces as members of the 12th Parliament. Those who will join the Committee of Foreign Affairs, you will have more time to understand more about our foreign relations. With this, I would like to thank you once again, and I would like to thank the clerk for giving me the time to chair this session. I now hand over to the Deputy Clerk. There was a request, Deputy Clerk. There was
Information.
A request. Kindly, please.
We
Deputy
also
Clerk,
have
please,
Honorable Santa Lumugwang in the house, but she has not been recognized.
The Honorable Santa Alum, may you kindly rise up for recognition.
Thank you, Chair, but it was done in the morning hours. Thank you, my colleague.
She's a minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. I now hand over the microphone to you for the next process. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To end with the EAC anthem. It was written to me that since the last presenter is the Minister for East African Community, we close the session with EAC anthem. You will guide accordingly, Clerk.
Thank you so much. There was a question on Ebola. Tomorrow at 4, we shall have a presentation on the status of Ebola in the country. So I urge you to be present. At this moment, I would like to thank you so much for your participation. I would like to thank all the presenters for your presentations. We are humbled and very much grateful. I would like to request our team to play the East African anthem as requested. Thank you. And after that, we shall depart at our own leisure.
Are we singing the anthems? But it will be both. Can't have only one.
Please. National anthem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waiswa, and many big thanks to our session chair, Honorable Amwaka, for taking us through. Honorable members, just a quick announcement. The transport departing Parliament will be found in the main parking just next to the gate. So the buses will come all the way to the gate, so you can walk towards the gate. But you are invited for a cup of tea served outside before you depart. Please grab a cup of tea and a snack before you take leave from the conference center. Ideally, we will still commence as early as possible tomorrow. We shall start the program by 8:30, so you're invited to be here, especially in the conference hall, by 8:30, so that we can start early and be able to finish the day very early. Thank you very much. And just a quick reminder that there's an ATM card, a Stanbic ATM card, that could have been misplaced. In case it belongs to you, please get in touch so that it can be given back to you. A reminder that the transport departing for Parliament will be found at the main parking, just near the gate, the entrance or rather exit of Monyonyo. And also, please grab a cup of tea before you depart. Thank you and have a good evening.